Thank you, Marguerite, for giving us a couple minutes here for a break. And have you been listening all morning or?
I have.
Yeah, okay. We certainly got a monkey on our backs, I think. But welcome to the Ag Committee, and we'll turn it over to you and hear what you have to offer.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you for inviting me to testify on S-197 sections 6 and 7 specifically. I am the coordinator of the Vermont PFAS Military Poisons Coalition and a member of the Vermont Pesticide and Poison Action Network. We've been doing our work in our coalition on PFAS for over 4 years now, and we represent mostly citizen advocates and groups around the state of Vermont. I personally live in Winooski, Vermont, and have been studying the issue of PFAS as it relates to, and it interconnects with a huge number of issues. We were at the State House on Tuesday holding a press conference, and one of the things that we advocated for, an overreaching goal, is to ban PFAS, the entire class of chemicals. And I think many of the things that Dr. Kyla Bennett brought up, who, by the way, was encouraged to come by members of our coalition and testify because of her amazing evidence and work in this area. So many of those emails that you're getting personally are from members of our coalition, from citizens in the state. And I know it might be bothersome to get them, but I would also add that we are not the chemical companies. We have no paid staff. We are the ones who are the citizens who are concerned and want to know that here in Vermont, we want to see things happen. We recognize that the EPA has not been protecting us and that we can do so much more here. I'm deeply concerned about PFAS and pesticides as both inert or other and active ingredients. And our coalition fully supports sections 6 and 7 to S-197. And the only thing we'd encourage is items that would strengthen the bill. We do not need PFAS in pesticides, as Dr. Kyla Bennett so poignantly pointed out. And there's a lot of reasons for that. First, PFAS was far fewer in pesticides before 2000. It's the chemical companies that really have promoted and pushed adding PFAS to pretty much everything. Back before 2000, fluorinated pesticides accounted for only 9% of pesticides on the market in the year 2000. And in the following 20 years, and especially just the last 10 years, Portuguese studies have shown that 70% of new pesticide products approved had PFAS added. In general, PFAS in pesticides and their byproducts break down much more slowly in the environment than previous PFAS-free formulations. And Dr. Bennett also pointed that out because of the strong bond. We did without PFAS and pesticides in the past, and we can do without them again. Second, we are talking about a lot of different PFAS chemicals, many of which, as Dr. Bennett pointed out, have not been vetted or properly studied, but we know enough about those that have been studied. A study of pesticides in Maine, as Dr. Bennett pointed out, and so did Pam Breyer, determined that 56 PFAS-related chemicals were found in over 1,400 pesticides. And none of the pesticides identified in the 1,400 pesticides were among the PFAS recently removed by the EPA. So this increasing trend to add additional poison to pesticides that are already considered poisons is absolutely insane. we don't need to double the poison. Third, PFAS is showing up in our food. And the use of pesticides with PFAS is really largely to blame for this. European Union scientists are documenting that fruits contain elevated levels of PFAS. Strawberries, spinach, kale, collard, mustard greens, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, grapes, peppers, cherries, blueberries, and green beans are all testing positive for PFAS. And in a new study, PFAS from pesticides has been found in breads and cereals, pasta and pasta products, flour and rice. Given the new EPA health advisory levels on PFAS, in other words, 0 of PFOA and PFOS, there shouldn't be any, and the fact that people ingest PFAS in water, they breathe it in the air and the dust in their homes and are exposed to it in the products that they buy and use, the addition of PFAS to pesticides is only adding to human exposure. Fourth, in the recent news, literally in the last couple of weeks, the Center for Disease Control is encouraging physicians and healthcare providers to consider blood testing for PFAS exposure with their patients. 99% of Americans already have PFAS in their blood. And remember that PFAS bioaccumulates in living things, causing a plethora of health problems, which Dr. Bennett and others have gone through. And those in professions that use PFAS are at the greatest risk, including farmers and farm workers. Fifth, Minnesota and Maine have already passed laws banning PFAS and pesticides. Other states are considering similar legislation. The EPA is not protecting us. Vermont can once again take the lead and move forward in this area. I've heard those in Vermont's Agency of Natural Resources and the Agency of Agriculture say that they need to do more research on the potential effects of removing PFAS from pesticides. I don't think that Vermont always needs to do its own research or form a commission. It seems to me that these are often delay tactics. Why can't we rely on people like Dr. Bennett, on national and international research like the OECD that they both that Dr. Bennett referred to, and so did Dr. Breyer, and which I include as a resource at the end of my testimony. Certainly, there are experts outside of Vermont who have research that they can share with us. And what we've discovered is that legislation and the anticipation of legislation is key to driving innovation for safer alternatives to PFAS and other chemicals. Even the difficult uses of PFAS, or what is often referred to as the essential uses, have promising alternatives. Plus, the transition periods in restrictive legislation, like the law you're passing, give us time to find alternatives if we need them. Safer alternatives are actually available for most uses of PFAS. Well-established alternatives have, for example, existed for textiles and refrigerants for quite some time. And innovation in this area is in full swing. For example, alternatives to PFAS in semiconductor manufacturing have been developed lately, something to think about for Global Foundries over in Essex, which is distributing PFAS in large quantities. IPEN, the International Pollutants Elimination Network, is a global network of public interest organizations improving chemical policies and raising public awareness to ensure that hazardous substances are no longer produced, used, or disposed of in ways that harm human health and the environment. IPEN has put together a report on the global PFAS problem and fluorine-free alternative solutions. And I give you a link to that document. ChemSec, or the International Chemical Secretariat, is an independent nonprofit organization that advocates substitution of toxic chemicals with safer alternatives. ChemSac hosts a marketplace database that gathers all green chemistry innovations in one place, making it easier for companies to choose safer solutions. And they even have another tool that allows companies to track their product through the whole cycle, getting out to the market to find out where they may have toxic chemicals. What matters even worse is that their persistence, PFAS are invisible chemicals that have infiltrated our environment, seeping into our drinking water, contaminating our food, and making their way into our bodies. In many cases, the PFAS levels are high enough to cause environmental and human health problems. So what makes matters even worse is that their persistence means that these forever chemicals don't break down. They bioaccumulate, fueling a never-ending rise in PFAS levels as long as we keep producing and using them. We just don't need PFAS and pesticides, period. Finally, consider the costs to government and to people in terms of healthcare, testing. You heard about the testing costs and remediation. There is no doubt in my mind that the cost to us as individuals and governments far outweigh the benefits of using this product. Chemical companies have deceived us for years about the dangers of these chemicals. It is not the job of our legislators to protect the chemical industry. It is the job of government and our legislators to protect people and living things, to protect our planet, as well as the future generations. And on behalf of our coalition and our other environmental groups, I'd ask you to get rid of PFAS and pesticides with S-197. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Marguerite. Good question.
No, thank you.
Irene?
Hi, Marguerite. I'm curious if your group is working against PFAS in other containers, such as food containers and other ways that may be ingesting it and we don't even know it.
Exactly. Biosludge was one of our demands, that we ban the use of biosludge until it can be proven safe. These are big concerns. The release of leachate into wastewater in the Winooski that comes downstream to us in Winooski, literally, and out to Lake Champlain. All of these are interconnected issues. So the big picture is we're really just tackling small issues right now. Our overarching demands would be really to ban PFAS as a class of chemicals. We're seeing the European Union try to do that by banning 10,000 forms of PFAS. It's not obviously an easy task because chemical companies have a huge amount of marketing money and a huge amount of data to kind of contradict everything that we're saying. So anything that we can do right now to protect people, I think is so important.
Thank you.
Yeah, are there any other questions? If not, thank you for your time and patience this morning. It's very interesting and so thanks again, Marguerite, and we'll move on to Sylvia Knight. Is Sylvia with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
We can do a video.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
I'm trying to.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
morning,
Morning.
everyone. I appreciate your taking testimony from me and from others for listening to Kyla Bennett and everyone. So, and I know that you have a difficult job on your hands. This is a very challenging subject. Who I am, I'm a volunteer lay researcher of pesticides and related subjects since about 1995. And I want to focus on section 6, page 10 of the law, lines 6 and 7. Okay?
Yeah,
All right. And I'm want to urge you to keep this section. It's crucial to keep the words intentionally added. I thought perhaps there would be some questions about that. We want to deny any attempts to remove this concept. PFAS are intentionally added to pesticides because they add properties that make the pesticide more lethal and more effective. I've shared with you, I don't know if Linda has the chart that she can share.
there we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
It shows that PFAS are added for specific purposes. They add characteristics such as low surface tension. This chart shows the function of the PFAS in the product and the properties that adds offers. So it could be the PFAS can be a anti-foaming agent with low surface tension. It can be a dispersant to facilitate the spreading of plant protection agents on insects and plant leaves. And it could be a wetting agent for leaves. So these are not these chemicals must be considered as highly active components of the pesticides to which they're added. They are not chemically inert. The word inert implies that they're not chemically active, but that's not true. They are very chemically active in the product. Please think with me about this aspect of the unidentified ingredients in pesticides. It's my understanding that the Vermont Agency of Agriculture and the Department of Health can get information about these ingredients, unidentified ingredients, but they're not required and they're not allowed to share that information with us. This makes regulation of these materials very difficult and challenging for our society. So we're asking you to act in a precautionary way today in the next week or so on this bill. We're asking you to take all of Kyla's testimony extremely seriously, Marguerite's testimony very seriously, and protect the state of Vermont from continued addition of pesticides that contain PFAS. We don't need them. We have to look toward future generations. These things accumulate in our bodies, and we've all heard that. I don't need to repeat that. So how are we to make wise, informed decisions about what we use if important information is withheld from us? We have to act in a precautionary way. Okay, if you won't tell us, we know that there are pesticides. This article from Europe that I cited comes from 2020. and shows that these PFAS are being added intentionally. We do not want Vermont to be victims of these persistent bioaccumulative chemicals for future generations. So we're asking, I'm just wondering, I'm hoping that you will keep section 6 and 7 intact and support this bill for addition to S25. It's really important for the future of Vermont farmers, Vermont residents, people who live in Vermont for future generations, and our international waters. I think, do you have any questions for me?
Well, thank you very much, Sylvia, for your testimony, and it was good, and we appreciate that. Are there questions from the committee for Sylvia?
I don't have any. Thank you. Also, thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time.
I had one more, I remember from a previous hearing, Chairman Starr's question, where is all this PFAS coming from? So part of the written testimony that I shared with your committee lists the product, the different kinds of products that contain PFAS. And of course, these businesses also send some of their waste into wastewater treatment facilities, which get into water. It's coming from all over. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, I think we got a pretty good education on that this morning, that darn stuff is everywhere. And we certainly don't want our ground contaminated where we grow our food and in our water that we have to drink. So I think we're on the right track. So, and again, thank you for your comments. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Chairman Starr. We appreciate your attentiveness and concern.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
so committee, we gotta be on the floor in a few minutes.
Yep.
I think that will wrap us up this morning. Certainly good testimony.
Yep.
And if maybe during lunchtime, if I have, I'll get Ag on to that testing issue. I mean, why not?
Why not?
Record
Yeah.
a seed and see what the heck comes back.
Yeah.
It's the only way we're really going. But
Hope answer a lot
boy,
of
that's
questions.
bad stuff though.
It is.
And when people at home get low on water from their spring,
Yeah.
they use those plastic tanks that are really bad to plug their water in.
Sure.
Or,
Now, I
Excuse me, the water that is coming from those springs is going through black plastic pipe that's been recycled, that who knows what's in that?
yeah. Well, anyways, we had a good morning.
Yeah, good week.
Lot of good testimony and that Linda got us all a new copy of 301
I saw that.
where there'd been some changes. So we'll be back on that next. Linda will send you a schedule.
Thank you. I'll send
Yeah.
that.